Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my fellow YouTubers, Facebookians. Welcome to another edition of Living Simply and Fun. I'm your host, Aries, and this is Aaron. I will let Aaron start first.
Yes, I don't even know all of what she's talked about or what she really wants me to talk about in this Medicare covering transgenderism. The first thoughts I have about, well, first of all, why doesn't Rita really want it to be? The reason is there's a lot of people out there who are in need of life-saving medical treatments that can't get it because Medicare doesn't cover it, or you got to go through a process for it and it takes a long time and you might not be able to get it done even then. Medicare actually only covers blood work like once every 2 years, depending on the type of blood work. There's some major mistakes in Medicare that are horrible, and to go and not fix those things, but go ahead and allow transgenderism to go through, that's what's upsetting. Yeah, it benefits Rita. Yeah, she might go ahead and take advantage of it. But at the same time, she believes it's wrong, especially since we've known, we've been involved with the transgender community for years. I've actually been in and out of working with the transgender community for probably about 16 years. Rita about 15 to 16 as well. During my time, they become totally and thoroughly obsessed with having their surgeries. And all they can talk about, they can't even talk about video games or a TV show unless it's about the cute guy in the TV show and how they want him. And it's kind of gross to actually sit around them and listen to them talk about, well, my surgery this, my surgery that, my surgery this, I'm going to get a guy to take care of me. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I'm generalizing, but I've been to several groups, and that's all the conversation has ever been
So
about.
have I.
And it's actually disgusting, because you can't sit there and say, oh, I was making this recipe the other day. Oh, what's the recipe? There's no normal behavior involved. It's, well, when I get my vagina, and then I've noticed over the years that when somebody actually does get the surgery, they vanish from their friends. They don't want to know them anymore. It's like, gotta write that part of my life out. Then all of a sudden they don't want to talk about transgenderism anymore, period. Unless they want to become an advocate for it and like a big sister to all the ones who haven't had it done, so they can rub it in their faces and say, bad dogs, you haven't had it done yet. And those people really upset me too.
As I said in yesterday's video...
Now, why do I know so much about it? Actually,
I was just going to read this.
Yes.
Cigar Addict basically says, I see your points and I have to agree. On another topic, I understand you're a male to female and that Aaron tried to become a female, or did he actually become female and had to revert back? The other question is, how far along are you? Have you had all your surgeries? What's left to do? I'm not trying to be rude, I'm just honestly curious to know. And then, I just want to say, you can start in a second. Miss Angela Rennie, thank you for posting this. Good video. I don't think breast implants are ever necessary, though they're a want, not a need. Well.
Anyways, that's the other thing. Before we get to the answer on my situation, I should have added this. Another reason why Rita doesn't believe that transgenderism or the surgery should be covered by Medicare is the fact that it's a want, not necessarily a need. I think I said it once before in one of my videos that to end up getting breast implants or a facelift or anything, that is not going to save your life. It's not going to keep you alive. And yes, I know the transgender argument. I've heard it numerous times that they're going to be suicidal if it doesn't happen.
Well,
they have clinical depression and they might starve to death because they don't want to get out of their bed. That's actually a load of crap.
Yes.
And that's because they want to be taken care of and they don't want to work.
Exactly.
And they're afraid of going out the way they are because they're afraid of being identified because there is too much violence out there against them. But you know what? You aren't going to die because you didn't have it. You know what? Go out as a guy if you're afraid of that and dress at home until you feel comfortable enough or until you can get your surgeries done. There's really actually nothing anymore in the standards of care that says you actually have to go out every single day full time. I was told by my therapist I had to, but I looked into the standards of care. It doesn't exactly expressly say that in the workplace. The workplace or school or whatever, you can still go as a guy and dress at night and go out to dinner or something.
When I was going through the standards of care and etc., where I went to get counseling, they told me flat outright that if I was going to transition, that I had to live at least 2 years full time. When I lived in Australia, I lived 4 years full time, and because I was away from my mommy and daddy, I got more flack there. But I also learned more life lessons there than trying to hide at home in mom's house. You know.
Anyways, I suppose for cigar addicts thing, I guess you probably watched one of our old videos.
No, it was a video that was done from last night.
Yeah, yes, I know this, but I never said anything recently in any of our videos that I remember that would have led anybody to believe that I had ever been transgendered. So I assume that you either watched one of our old videos where something was said, because I know Rita's got like 1,600 videos or something. But I know there's been points where we've talked about it, because the videos go back 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. Anyways, the other possibility is that you assume because I have gynecomastia, which I've had actually since I was 5 years old. That's something that's natural occurring for me. But I was born male, and I was diagnosed as male to female, transgendered. Started to go through the process, and about 6 or 7 years ago, roughly, I found out that I had a very much different condition, which was part of my blackout spells, and more than likely that condition was the cause for these feelings or thoughts. So, yes, I stopped it, and also various medications were causing me severe and horrible health problems. They are not very good for the body, and that's a guarantee.
Well,
I have had no more problems with those symptoms that I was having then since then. So those problems went away.
All I was going to say is, when it comes to me, one of the things is people don't think I'm transgendered, but you know, when you live as a girl for 16 years, you can sit there and say, I've lived full time for 16 years. I've gotten flack for it for 16 years. What have you done? Oh, well, I had FFS in 2 years and breast implants in 3, and I'm hot and gorgeous.
See, that's one thing I like about Rita. It might seem like I dislike the transgender community, which actually in many ways I do. But Rita is so much different because she's just actually really just a person. She doesn't sit there and talk about her transgendered issues too much, except for when things like this come out, which this is the Medicare packet basically on transgendered equality and Medicare and how to go through the process and changing your gender marker on your Medicare card, etc. This is the type of thing that'll get her going, or where a transgendered person's sitting there. Like what happened to me years ago is she was on a place called Trans Passions, and so I figured, heck, why not? You know, I'm technically a single guy too. Hey, maybe I can meet someone, and you know, I don't care how a person is. I'm not gay. That's one thing I know, but I want somebody who's caring and compassionate, and at least is female for maybe 98%. You know, they've had their surgeries and everything. I mean, everybody needs someone to love, right? And I'm not sexually orientated. I really don't care about sex. It's not me. I rarely even think about it. I guess I'm not a typical guy, as they say, every 19 minutes, and with me it's
actually the statistics is every 6 seconds they think of sex.
Yeah, well,
I don't even think about that.
With me it might be once every week or two. So I'm just non-sexual, period.
See, I must think about it like every 3 weeks myself.
No, you think about it like every 5 seconds.
No, I don't. Don't even go there, because I know my own mind. I'm more thinking about video games, music, movies, how to send the next email, and how to go about certain things. I'm not like the trannies, like he said, that thinks about eat, sleep, and breathe, sex change, sex change.
I remember there was this one, and I met up with them, and we went to a park, and we were talking about issues and stuff. 3 hours I got to listen to them talk about all their boyfriend experiences and how much sex they had had and how their wife was supportive of that. And then we went to Taco Bell for lunch, and then they were joking about the tacos and about how it's sexual food and how it resembles a vagina and how it's one of her favorite foods because of that. And it's like, my God, is all you ever think about sex? Sex, 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 more sex?
Don't forget the foofy ones. Ow! They're so stereotypical, but every woman won't.
Like Mario, who couldn't even pick up a cardboard box to throw it into a dumpster because they had to look totally helpless doing it.
Ow! Ow!
Yeah, I don't see this horrible behavior in the female to male grouping. they don't usually sit there all day about talking about their.
Hey, look, right on the video. Yeah, you
they don't sit there talking about their future dicks and how many girls they're going to screw, but the trans community, for the most part, the male to females, all they talk about is how many guys they're going to have in their life and how they're going to get themselves a great boyfriend who's going to support them and take care of them, and they're going to be the greatest housewife ever. And it's like...
don't forget they have to have money, a car, 6 or 8 packs.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. When I was on Trans Passions looking for someone, every single person that I talked to basically said, ew, gross. I'm not dating a fat guy. Oh, I'm not dating a guy who looks like you. You're not attractive or handsome. You don't have money. You say right there you're disabled. I'm not dating a disabled person. You're not going to ever have any money. Oh, you don't drive because you have seizures? Oh, well then I don't want to date you because my guy's going to have to drive. And it's like, you know what? That's wrong. You know, sitting there saying that a person has to have a 6-pack and $100,000 a year job. These people here, so many of them are never going to find anyone, and they have somebody willing to give them the time of day, and they're going to be rude jerks about it. It's just very upsetting. And so it's one reason why I really despise and dislike much of the transgender community, because they are artificial, they are fake, they don't act like women, they act extra foofy, and all they care about is how many guys they're going to deceive in their lives.
Don't forget, as I said to the viewers of my other video, which you and I talked about last night, where, you know, sometimes I have that, and it's only like a fantasy, mind you, but, you know, most trannies, they think wearing a mini skirt and hooker boots is appropriate in this communities, or not this community, but this day and age.
It's not available right there. Must be over there. I was going to say that the transgender community is very much like that scene in Trans America where this girl's sitting there and she's like, this is Kiana 1 and this is Kiana 2. That is the type of thing that a transgendered person would do. There it is. Rita got it. We watched it once. It's a horrible movie. The plot's actually pretty decent. It was all horrible. I think Graham Greene had the best deal in it, and I don't even know why he ended up ever being in that. He was one of the better actors.
Felicity Huffman.
Oh, Felicity Huffman sucked in it.
Calpurnia sucked too, playing that thing.
I don't know. She was only in there for all of like 10 seconds. Playing the violin.
I would like to make a statement that also when we're talking about transgender things, like he said, when it comes to their acts, Aaron sits there and he says to me he's proud of me because I could sit there and talk about cigars or the hints of flavorize pick him. You see a tranny watch my video, oh man, grow up and be a man.
Rita likes to talk about fly fishing. She likes to talk about cars now and then because sometimes we talk about the newest car models and
what about
cars
that
that we like.
I saw a truck the other day. It had 6 doors.
Exactly.
It was a diesel, man.
We sit there and we talk about food, barbecue wings and stuff, not rabbit food. I mean, a transgender person would act like the only thing they ever eat is a soy burger, whereas Rita sits there and she's glad to say hot wings.
I'm sorry to say this to you, cigar addict, but most trannies, as I think I said in yesterday's video, usually talks about to pay for their sex change, they gotta eat ramen noodles.
Yeah, that's the other thing. They'll make you feel sorry for them by saying how they have to eat ramen noodles every day.
At least you get a variety of all those flavors.
I don't know anymore. I can't stand any of the other flavors other than that pecan beef. It's maybe one of the best flavors on the market.
I think for the cup of noodles one, the spicy beef or the spicy chicken's
the spicy chicken's horrible. The pecan chicken that I got, you can't even taste any spice.
No, talking about the one in the cup of noodles.
Oh, in the cup of noodles, yeah.
Yes, but you get it. But anyways, no, what I'm trying to say is he agrees and he's always happy that I'm myself and I won't jump over and be foofy. I won't sit there and see these trannies saying, well, darling, you need to wear a miniskirt because that's what the women do. And then you tell them, like Aaron would say, excuse me? How many women in this here in Cleveland is wearing a miniskirt? Or thigh-high stockings with thigh-high boots?
In the wintertime.
Get real.
I mean, I've known some genetics to do that, but very few actually will.
And that they take this whole womanhood to a new perspective. You're supposed to be yourself. You're not supposed to sit there and say, oh, well, I want to have 29 penises in me in the next 29 days.
And my whole point of actually bringing... My whole point of actually Hey.
I'll get it taken care of.
You could do...
There. Do you want to hear the incoming message?
No. Oh, I didn't know there was one coming in. I couldn't follow what you were doing. Anyways, I kind of lost my train of thought. What I was going to say is the reason I bring all this stuff up is because transgender people are scrupulous. They...
Well, I got to do this. Sorry. He's talking about unscrupulous.
I shouldn't have used the word.
The movie, The Ninth Gate. You know what you are? You're unscrupulous! Unscrupulous! When he deals the deal with the books for the Don Quixote series. Screws him over. That was a good book. A good series, too.
Anyways, they don't let up. They are among the greatest deceivers in the world. And they're actually not very good at it. They think they are. They talk about how wonderful they are and how their guy doesn't even know.
If you have $500,000 of plastic surgery.
There was this one. I was at a party with. It was a transgendered support group party for Christmas, basically, and they're sitting there, and their jawline is like really standoutish. Their brow line is they're got male pattern baldness, and so they had to wear a bandana to hide their hair. And they sit there, and you can actually still see the hair growing on their upper lip from a 5 o'clock shadow, even though they had electrolysis. There was nothing really feminine about them. And they're sitting there talking about how their boyfriend for the last 4 years still doesn't know. Bull! I'm sorry, he knew the second he met you, or you don't have a boyfriend.
Most of them are liars, too.
Yes, most of them will also lie. Which brings us back to this. If they're willing to deceive and lie, how many of them are going to sit there and say, oh, I'm so depressed. I'm going to die from depression because I barely get out of bed. I can't even work. And how am I going to afford this? I'm going to be suicidal. Therefore, I need this. It's a matter of life-saving treatment.
However, I do want to say in my previous video, I did state that I agree with what he says. However, this also applies for them douchebags, and I call them douchebags, no offense to you, cigar addict, or Miss Rennie, but the trans community out there is douchebags because they want to abuse the system by getting on it, then waiting 2 years for Medicare to kick in, so then they can go into the place and say, oh, I've been on it waiting 2 years, and I'm so depressed, I'm going to kill myself.
So they're going to sit there and claim disability for that, which right now transgenderism is not a reason for disability pay. You do not get disability pay for being depressed either. Chronic depression to the point of being unable to perform anything is not a reason for it by the Medicare standards. So this is something that they don't understand, but they're going to push for it and push for it. We've known some that have been trying to get on disability for 12 to 15 years because they want to try to get their sex change on it, which they didn't do until this year anyways. And still, you have to follow a standards of care. Now, that brings up another thing. Most of these trannies do not understand, and if you've made it this far and you're watching this and you're transgendered, pay attention. You haven't been on Medicare yet. You haven't been on Medicare yet. Medicare only covers 80% of your bill. You are responsible for 20%. Sex change surgery is between $60,000 and $75,000 American. All right,
That's just for the vagioplasty.
Yes.
However,
well,
I want to correct him with one thing. Female to male surgery right now in America is $250,000 for a dong.
Yes, but I don't think too many male to females are going to do this because most male to females are respectable and work for their living. And they go out
female to males.
Female to males. They actually go out, they do their work, they make their money. I have nothing but respect for the female to males in the community. They seem to be outright generous genuine people who enjoy their life and do what's right. Whereas the male to females all act so artificial and fake. It's gross. But as I was saying, pay attention here. Let's just say that it's $70,000 for the vagioplasty surgery in America, taking an average of the various different doctors who do it. You are going to be responsible for $14,000 still. And when you're responsible for $14,000, the doctor wants it up front. But Social Security and Medicare only allow you to have $2,000 in savings. Otherwise, you have to pay for your own because they won't cover you. They'll cut you off.
See,
of it.
it's a
so
catch-22.
You can't afford the $14,000, and most of these doctors won't make a payment schedule, so you can pay $500, $500, $500, $500 until $14,000 is paid off.
Or hold on, or some people say when Medicare pays the lower amount for say, right? This is another thing. He's right about everything he said. Now, pay attention if you transsexuals are looking and listening to me now, because there's something I'm going to say that me and Aaron's heard me talk about this. And it says right here on page 4, they're hoping to get doctors on boards.
Right now, no doctors doing it.
Yeah, because
they have to take Medicare in the first place.
And if they take Medicare, they got to sign a waiver with Medicare saying, quote, unquote, that if this person's poor, you can't charge them anything more.
Yes, and another problem with well, that's one thing they're hoping to do, but the other thing, too, is why they won't necessarily take Medicare is they're charging a $70,000 surgery. And Medicare might only say, well, we're only covering $4,500, but you can't charge your client more than 20% of what we told you could. So there's lots of problems with it, and there may not even be any doctors out there. At least you can maybe get your meds covered.
It says hormones right here, but it also says here, however, back in the day in 1981, the categories this sex change or sex reassignment surgery as experimental, and they did not allow it, but they lifted the ban. However, it says here, and this is something that I would like to bring up again, is right there it says that transition-related health care under Medicare, and it's coverage for a related individual basis. Now, it also says right here, medically necessary.
Yes.
Medically necessary. I'd like
means
to cover that.
Medically necessary, it means that they're going to have to deem that it's a life-threatening condition for you. So, again, if you manage to get on, they may not deem that it's medically necessary. Heck, just because you go in and you tell them that you need to have the sex change because your boyfriend really wants to have sex with you, but you can't let him know that you have male genitalia, and you're trying your best to put him off, but that's not going to get you your surgery. And this is an argument that a lot of trannies have made before. I actually was talking to one of my therapists, and she couldn't discuss all the cases she had by name, but she said that's a very common answer from transgender people, is that they have a boyfriend who doesn't know, and that they need to get the surgery done.
Can I say...
And they'll ask to get it done early because there's actually a standard of care that's like 2 years of therapy, etc., and 2 years of hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah, and 2 years before you can get your breast implants, you know. But
so
this medically necessary, what I was trying to say is, if this is going to be medically necessary, quote unquote, for transsexuals to drain the Medicare bank account, then what about the woman who's got huge breasts and need a reduction and can't get it done? Or what about the cancer patient that needs to have a breast lopped off?
Or what about the schizophrenic who needs their medication that's not covered because it happens to be considered a Tier 4 psych med, and therefore they can't get their medication covered, period. And it's $450 a month.
Apparently there's this thingy that I didn't know about called the Medicare beneficiaries.
You can argue
prescription drugs at the appropriate their medical needs by asking for a special paper that can get their medication.
Yes, but it's very, very difficult to get that. I can't even get them for the Seroquel that keeps me from having the blackouts. And the blackouts are actually what was the reason for them diagnosing me with transgenderism. I was confused by all that situation. It's what I have is some type or form of dissociative identity disorder, or DID. It used to be classified as multiple personality disorder. What form I actually have is unsure. It could be just a fugu state, but because the fact that I black out and the feelings I've had, that's believed there could be some other personality. But we don't know, because nobody's really sat there and talked to it and come forward and said, oh yeah, I talked to your alter ego, or nobody's come up to me and said, hey, I saw you at the bar the other night, you still up for this Friday? And I'd be like, Friday? What about Friday? I don't know who you are. I've never had that type of situation. I've never woke up in another town not knowing how I got there or anything. So it's not like Sybil with me at all. Again, dissociative identity disorder, just like gender identity disorder, seems to have a lot of fakers in the community that just make it up. But that's not necessarily going to get into that. But yeah, there's a medication that will kind of relieve that situation for me. And that's why I have a service dog, is he keeps me from blacking out in public. And my blackout phases usually come with self-harm, but I don't know why. So last thing I need to do is be walking around in public after self-harm. You know, it's just not a very comfortable thing to be bleeding all over the place and being like, "Hi, how are you?" Doesn't work very well. So it's nice that he keeps me inside. But that's, again, this is getting kind of off track. It's just, I was trying to say, you know, it's a shame that our mental patients can't get mental therapy. They can't get their prescriptions because they can't get mental therapy. Without mental therapy, they don't get to see a psychiatrist that can actually prescribe the medications. They're entitled to see a psychiatrist twice a year, both times to adjust their medicines. But sometimes the psychiatrist wants to see more than that, which usually they need to read a therapist's notes so they know what's going on, because they don't have time to sit and discuss with you your entire life history. And in 2 sessions twice a year, they don't have time to make a diagnosis or anything either. So that's why they rely on therapist notes. And if you can't go and see a therapist because Medicare doesn't cover it, then how's a psychiatrist going to give you the med and your normal doctor won't give it to you? I was on Medicaid at one point, and that's how I got to find out what meds worked, but I've been off of them for 6 years now. And it's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, and then, you know, they say, oh, well, this therapist is left, this therapist left, this
Yeah,
happened,
we just
that
found out
happened.
that the therapist we were recently trying to talk to, who had a receptionist that started bullying us and we stopped going, both of them have been fired recently, so at least we understand one was fired and the other one just is no longer there. Whether he quit or fired, I don't know.
It's sad, actually.
But I was confirmed that the receptionist that harassed us was fired. So
yeah, well, it's still...
And we never turned him in for it. Never.
We
just decided we'd avoid them. But I had to go in because they never submitted a bill to me, period.
And it went to collections.
And it went to collections, and I actually qualified for the 0% flat fee, you know, which sliding scale, 0% sliding scale. I would have paid $0. They refused to give that to me. Then they didn't send me a bill. I thought I got it, but because they were harassing Rita, I couldn't go back in there to find out. Couldn't go back in there, so they sending me a bill. And then they decided to send it to collections without ever sending me a bill. Was totally wrong. So I got to go and deal with that later in the week, honestly. But this is the points we're trying to make.
Next week, because tomorrow's Friday.
Well,
if you want to call
I could go in tomorrow. I got to call their their other place out of Moses Lake.
However, my opinion.
But my point is, there's a lot of things out there that Medicare doesn't cover right now that they should, especially with all these so-called school shootings and how many of these people are, well, mass murders, I should say, not school shootings, because they're not all in schools. But the mass murders, most of these people are people who are diagnosed with some type of mental problem, and if you actually look into their records, you'll find that they're no longer being treated because it's not covered by their health insurance, or they were on Medicare and now they're not getting the mental health, they're not getting their medications, they're not on their medications. These are things that need to change, but unfortunately, instead of making the mental health care system better, we're tearing it down even further.
Paying for sex changes.
And now we're paying for sex changes when we should be increasing the care to mental health patients. Cancer screening is only allowable once a year by Medicare. There's a chance that you might show symptoms this month of breast cancer, and they might go and try to do a mammogram on you and say, oh, you don't have breast cancer. Now they can't do another test on you all year, and what if you end up with pancreatic cancer by end of year? You know, you can't have another treatment, and by the time you get your next treatment, it might be too late to save your life. That's a horrible thing. Or what if you end up having a pancreatic cancer test? Now you can't get a breast cancer test even though you've detected a lump, and you're sitting there telling the doctor, there's a lump right here. I know, but we can't do anything to test for it because you've already gotten your one test this year. This is where Medicare needs to be fixed. But unfortunately, now they're giving transgendered surgery. Now, as I said, though, the chance that a transgender person's actually going to get it and actually be able to afford it is almost null.
Most
it's
likely
nil.
They're going
Don't
to
rely on it, because if you're transgender, don't rely on it, because you still have to get on disability which could take you 10 to 12 years just to get on it because
And-
transgenderism's not covered. And once you're on it, you got to wait 2 years for Medicare, and then you got to prove it to Medicare. It could take you 20 years to get the surgery. If you're thinking about it right now, saying, "Yay, it's me! Medicare covers it. Now all I got to do is get on Medicare." Chances you're not going to get on Medicare, and by the time you are, you're going to be 40, 50 years old if you're 20 right now.
Can I bring up something to you? Would you like to tell the audience also about the Army lady that fought for it at 74, yet she doesn't have many years left, it seems, so why even fight for it?
Yeah, in fact, it's very possible. They might say that she's her advanced age is too old to go through the surgery. Now, I know that they do surgery for elderly quite frequently, but this is one that even doctors would consider elective, and at 74 years old, a doctor might not be entirely comfortable with putting a person under anesthesia at that advanced age for that long of a time frame. Yeah, they were ex-military, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to have a problem with their health while under the knife. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I should mention.
I have something to mention.
Yeah? I know you're looking all over the place for something.
Yes, I'm looking for something, but Aaron and I, it might be at your place.
Well,
anyways,
what is it?
It has to do with Medicare, okay?
Oh,
Every
okay.
year, Aaron can vouch for me, Medicare produces a handbook. And under that handbook, as I was telling Miss Rennie, Medicare classifies any elective cosmetic surgery not deemable in their handbook. Now, sex change, if you get your penis inverted, is plastic surgery. Getting breast implants is plastic surgery. So if anyone wants to have a sex change, the only thing that Medicare should be able to cover is hormones, but not giving the plastic surgery. I mean, they say anything deemed under the sex change clause. That means FFS,
yes, but
breast augmentation,
unfortunately,
and
here's
GRS.
what happened is the transgender people started saying, well, it's something from birth. It's a birth defect. And that birth defect we've lived with our whole lives, and it's causing us severe depression and an inability to handle our lives. So they've sat there and said, well, it's medically necessary to some people to be able to get them back to work and be able to give them the quality of life that a person deserves. That's what they've done.
Yes, but they may, they were going to, the transgendered person was getting ready to file a suit against the HHS. The HHS decides to lift the ban. But here's the kicker. What if about, say, 500,000 people that are transsexual, that are retired or disabled, decide to go on, for the sex change? And they get through almost all of it, and all of a sudden a new administration comes in and bans it again.
Yeah, that
It
could
could
very well
happen.
happen.
See, Obama
and
did this
by
for
the
a
time that
reason.
you actually are able to get on, it might be banned again. So it's probably not worth it if you think that you're going to be able to use the system and get a free sex change, because it's probably not going to happen for you, just because you're going to have a hell of a time getting on disability. It is not easy to do, even if you have severe disabilities. However, they say that more have gone in during Obama's time than in the last, 50 years in America. And that's actually kind of a sad thing, because there's really not that many people who are disabled to the point that they can't work. But there are. And some of these disabilities, I understand, are people who've lost legs, arms, etc. They seriously can't work. I want to get back to work, and I'm one of the person who can actually probably be corrected to get back on work. Probably about 50% of the disabled people are. But unfortunately, Medicare doesn't work to the point of actually fixing the problems. Instead, they'll allow the problems to continue and never fix them, which means that our government, again, is screwed up and not trying to actually fix the problems that people have, which mine can be fixed by prescription drug coverage, essentially, that covers my medications. My medications would be over $900 a month if I had to pay for them right now. And I would get no help from my prescription drug coverage, which most everything I buy is $2 from my prescription drug coverage. But it's $900 for the ones that aren't covered. So for me to be properly medicated, I couldn't afford it. It's more money a month than I get in, and I don't qualify for any other extra help to cover those medications or anything, because those medications aren't covered by the extra help anyways. Also, I'm ruled that I think it's too much money for extra help. so I don't qualify for it anyways. I could pay like $150 for it, but I'm still going to end up paying $900 for my medications. That doesn't help me any. Fact of the matter is I got to pay my rent. I got to pay for food and stuff. Heck, this month, because of sending out Christmas gifts, which I actually bought over the course of the whole year, I ended up with an emergency where I got a hole now in the bottom of my shoes, and we got rain right now, and snow will eventually come, but I can't stop the rain or snow from getting into my shoe, and I can't afford new shoes right now. How am I supposed to pay for my my medical? And then on top of that, I got dental that's life-threatening, and I can't afford that because I want almost $2,000 for my dental work. And that's just for one tooth, which is, at this point, killing me, truly. It's abscessed severely for the last 4 years and it's beginning to eat away at the jawbone. It's known, but there's nothing they can do about it. If something's not done soon and I manage to survive this, they might actually have to remove part of my jawbone just so I don't die from that.
And they might not even give the services for it.
And then I might not qualify for it. However, once it gets into the jawbone, honestly, I do it. The doctors will actually do anything.
Yeah, but will the doctors do it? Look at my jackwagon doctor.
They already know it's in because I could touch the gum area around it and I want to scream. So it's beginning to rot forward in the jaw.
Well,
it could still go to the brain or to the chest from there, and I can end up having a chest abscess or a brain abscess and die from that. So it's not actually a very pleasant situation. And again, this is something that Medicare should be covering as emergency dental for people who are actually in dire need of it. Or optical for people who can't see where they're going anymore. My glasses are 14 years old, and I can barely see out of them anymore, but I can't see at all without them.
See, this is how kind I am. I offered to help him get his glasses.
And I won't take it.
No.
I won't take it because it's not her responsibility to take care of my glasses. It's mine. I just can't afford to do it. Now, if it was some agency like the Lions Club that said, hey, we're going to help, well, that's great. But you know what? She's disabled too. I can't ask a disabled person to give up part of their money so I can have glasses because I already know what it's like to be disabled. There's not enough money. There really seriously isn't, and Medicare doesn't cover this stuff.
Yeah,
and
nor hearing aids.
But instead they cover transgendered surgery. It's just wonderfully wonderful. But, as I said, it'll be so few it probably won't even affect
I don't even think it will be at any. I mean, if you read this thing you hear, it talks about it's got to be approved or denied by Medicare, and then at Medicare Advantage plan, it's got to be approved or a thing. And private Medicare Advantage, Care Plus, or Part D has got to, you can appeal right there, blah, blah, blah.
Yep. So you're going to have to get your doctor first to handle it. Well, first you're going to have to get your gender marker changed with Medicare. Then you got to get your doctor to agree to work with it. And then your doctor's going to have to file on your behalf, but because they take Medicare, they have to. But I'm afraid your doctor's going to sit there and say, I'm very sorry, I don't understand this, and I don't feel comfortable working with it. It doesn't matter if you feel comfortable or not. It has to be done by law. But we're afraid that they're going to tell her no, which means that she's probably more likely to get her surgery when they tell her no because she'll be able to sue the hospital soon because the doctor's out of the hospital. And the hospital's in such bad debt it'll cause it to shut down. But she'll probably win, get money paid to her from the county who's floating all their bills and paying their debts right now. So the county will end up having to eat it. And then Rita will be able to get her surgeries because of a lawsuit, which is not the way we really want things to go.
We are ministers. We don't like that. But I mean,
we've had multiple opportunities in our lifetimes to sue. I had a situation where one hospital told me there was absolutely nothing wrong with me. I got into the taxi cab, and I begged the taxi cab driver to drive me to the other hospital. They drove me to the other hospital, and I was rushed into emergency surgery. My gallbladder was close to exploding. And the other hospital said I was perfectly fine and there was nothing wrong. I had to crawl out of the hospital in tears, and I nearly passed out at the door just to get into the taxi.
And the other doctor that got him rushed into ER looked at me because I didn't have Medicaid anymore at the time. Looked at me, looked at Aaron, he was there, he can vouch for it. Said, call a taxi, I'm paying for her to get home. And the doctor paid for my taxi ride home, which was like $80 because we were all the way like 50 miles.
Yeah, and then when I was in Cleveland, I was working at this place, little restaurant, bar and grill, and in front of about 30 witnesses, my manager started screaming and yelling at me and sexually harassing me. And I ended up walking out on that job after nearly killing him, honestly. Even though I never touched him, the thought was in my head, and I had this huge rocking pizza wheel in my hand that was actually so razor sharp you could barely touch the pizza with it, and it cut through it. Anyways, it took everything I had not to use that knife on him, and I put it down. I seriously thought about chopping off his head and throwing him into the pizza oven. But
oh, cool!
That would have been
head
done
on a pizza.
That would have been a ton of different witnesses seeing me do that, and I actually was able to just because it's not really me. I can't do that, even though it was in my head. I can't do that. Now, if it was to myself, I might be able to, but that's another story. Anyways, I put it down, walked out of work, and people said, "Why don't you sue his ass for what he did to you?" And I said, "Nah, I can't do that."
It's like the one day...
and I actually had a mental breakdown. I had to be hospitalized for that. That was actually about the beginning of my problems. They didn't really show up until that moment.
Well, it sounds like the lawsuit with me with discrimination one time. And Aaron knows this one. I go in one morning and I have to go tinkle. And it's like 7:20 in Safeway. So I run in the bathroom. I will use it. No one's in there. I was washing my hands. A little girl, a woman comes in there with her little boy. And I basically whipped out a paper and she says, "What's that? I'm going to make sure you go to prison." Turned around and said, "Go for it." So she went to the manager. I went to the manager and told the manager, "Here's my paper." The manager turned and says, "Do you want her to own the entire Safeway? Let her go." I said, from that point on, I told the guy, "I'm not suing your store, but I'm going to go use the bathroom somewhere else where there is no discrimination."
And I've been thrown out of many stores for my service dog, which is against my rights, civil liberties and all that. I could sue their pants off, but I haven't. It's just not right for me to do. I had some mistreatment at one of the doctor's offices here in town. Again, I could go after them, but I'm not going to. Rita had a situation with the local transit authority. But again, we're not going to get into that too much, and we decided not to do anything to them. And luckily we didn't, because everything's cool now, it seems, but we had an opportunity there. There's numerous times we've had opportunities. It's just not what we're going to do. It's not how we're going to be. Heck, McDonald's fed us raw meat one night, and we could have taken the burgers and saved them.
I got sick, I had the runs, but otherwise...
we just threw it out, but it looked like they basically scraped it across the grill and threw it on a bun. It was bright pink inside.
11 o'clock at night. Like,
we could have taken that directly to, court and said we're suing over this. But we didn't. That's not how we were.
Well, yeah, I mean...
So even if the doctor won't do it, chance that we'll sue is like none. But... even though we probably should. Well,
if it comes down to it, we don't know what our plans are, but I will tell you I got ran out from my former doctor because of being transgender.
I also have an opportunity where I could sue the University of Washington. When they removed one of my teeth, they ended up breaking the tooth behind it, but they did nothing about the broken tooth. They wouldn't repair it. They wouldn't pull it, too. That's the one that's severely abscessed now, and it's probably the one that's going to kill me. Also, I had a tooth pulled by a local doctor here. They obviously couldn't count to 4. It has 4 roots. They removed the tooth with 3 roots. Where was the 4th root? They left it in there. Now it's growing into the tooth in front, and the tooth in front of it's shattering as it keeps growing up. So that tooth is probably going to get severely abscessed too. So even if I get this one taken care of, then this one's going to flare up.
Hey, maybe he can grow a 3rd set of teeth, man. It's rare, but it can happen.
I wish. And then just on top of that, I got 3 implants here. I knocked them out when I was 13. My dad had implants put in because he thought that I'd want to live a fairly normal life, and he didn't want me sitting there like prom trying to kiss a girl with my partial falling out. I mean, that would be nasty and gross and wrong, and then she'd never talk to me again. So my dad went ahead and got me implants, even though I've never really had a girlfriend. The screw over the course of some 25 years has worked its way loose and fell out. Well, this one doctor wanted $247 to put it back, just to have an initial appointment, so I could pay $247 for a second appointment where he could put the screw in, and the screw would take him all of 5 minutes to put in, but it was going to cost $250. And I sit there and say, why doesn't any of these fucking dentists, pardon my French, have any compassion for their fellow mankind at all and say, you know what, you're poor, you can't afford this money, you can't even afford $5. You know what, it's going to take me 5 minutes and a screwdriver, a specialized screwdriver for that. Just pop into my office, tell me you're here for that, have the screw with you, and I'll put it back in. You know, that's any dentist in the world should have been able to say that, because there is no work to it. They're so afraid of liability, which I've never really heard of many people suing their dentists anyways, but they're so afraid of their liability, they won't do anything for free. Not unless they're working out of a free clinic and they happen to donate their time, which usually they're the ones that will never donate their time, as I found out at the Cleveland's free clinic. But anyways, this has been 45 minutes. I think we've beaten this like a dead horse. I don't know anything else that we can really say.
Oh, well, like
I didn't even really want to do this video because I don't really like to talk about transgenderism, because I really don't want the tranny community sitting there saying I'm have hatred towards them and I'm discriminatory towards them. No, I'm not. Actually, I think
freedom of choice, freedom of speech. Hoo-ha!
That's up to her. The thing is, I'm actually really for and supportive of the transgender community as long as I can see that they're doing it for the right reasons, and that they're sitting there being artificial windbags. If they're sitting there being artificial fake windbags that are deceptionary, and all they can talk about is their transition, I don't want to know them.
Or sex. I'm getting the biggest implants in the world, so my guy likes his big.
I am so hot. And talking with a voice like that, I'm so hot, every guy wants me. Yeah, there's somebody.
Gag me with a rusty spoon.
I think there's somebody named Julia who does YouTube videos that sounds just like that. I might be. She's sitting there like, I am so hot, look at my boobs. And it's like, what is with your voice? That is the most deepest voice I have ever heard on a woman before. And obviously you're sitting there looking like a guy wearing a horrible wig. And you think you're the hottest woman in the world, and she makes like 30 videos a day. She dances around shaking her implants, and she's like, look at how hot I am. Oh, I'm so hot. You want to all whack to me on the other side. That's why I got 50,000 viewers a day. And it's like, no, you're gross. Go away. Turn it off. Don't even do a video. I'm sorry. That's just disgusting. You are not a transgender person. You are a freak. There are transgendered people in the world, and most of them are very nice, kind, caring people who just live their life.
I did say something to Cigar Addict. Before we wrap this up, I will ask him once more to do it for me, and that is the 7 types of transgenderism, so he can explain it better to why the
47 minutes in, and you're going to ask for something that could easily be a 1-hour video. But yeah, there's so many different types of transgenderism. One of the types is essentially a gay man who, on religious ground, can't admit to the fact that they're gay because that would send them to hell. So the only thing they could say, basically, is that the devil has destroyed their body and they're doing the right thing and trying to correct it so that they can live a normal life. And so they've rationalized their transgender issues into a matter of this is okay because I'm heterosexual, I'm straight, I'm not gay. I just happen to be attracted to men, but I'm a woman in a man's body, so that works, as long as I can get my sex changed. There's those who are essentially perverts, and it becomes a fetish to them. And they start wearing their mother's bra at like 5 years old, and the only way they can get off is by wearing women's clothes. So now they believe in their heads in the worst way that they're actually really a woman, when all it is actually a perverse fetish. That's 2 of the types. There's those who are bullied into it. See, I don't have my notes in front of me. I can't remember everything off the top of my head. But there's those that are bullied throughout their whole life. They're called a wimp and a pussy, and they start to believe that maybe they are wrong, that the guys that bullied them were all telling the truth. And so they decide that the best thing to do is become the woman that they supposedly are, because everybody else has convinced them of that. Sexual abuse victims are another possibility, and really what it is trauma from the sexual abuse, but they've got it stuck in their head that the sexual abuse was right because they were actually seen as the girl they were as a kid. And so it's in a way kind of along the lines of like Stockholm Syndrome. That's 4 of the ways, but I can't remember the others right now.
Well,
there's the real transgendered person who actually really is. Don't necessarily say yourself. That's being full of it. And
I'm not full of it, but
you've not actually had any test that proves without a shadow of a doubt that it's genetic.
Well, yes, I have, Trudy Kennedy, but that's beside the point. So can we get down to the...
Speaking of that, almost every single transgendered person I have ever met will either tell me that they have an extra chromosome, they were born intersex with both parts, or that
what about the Fruit Loop that got stung by a bee?
Yes, then there's the Fruit Loop that got stung by a bee who turned over her endocrine system and made her a woman. And then she went and had surgeries to become a woman. Yeah, okay. If it made you a woman, then it did it without needing surgeries to do it. And then there's those who say that, well, I had a genetic test done, and they found in my RNA and DNA that I actually had in my chromosomes a difference, and so I am actually really a woman, but there's a little mutation there, and it changed things.
Yeah, okay. I've heard this so many times, it goes in one ear and out the other.
Or you'll hear them end up telling you about the testosterone bath and how everybody's born a woman and how their mother must have done some type of drug in the 60s that caused them to have this testosterone bath that wasn't supposed to happen.
Heard that, seen it. We ain't going to go there.
Almost every tranny you know will tell you one of those things as why they are female.
Then you got the
None of them will ever admit to the fact, oh, well, I was wearing my mommy's pantyhose when I was 6 years old, and I started to get turned on by it, and it's the only way I could get off, and now I want everybody to call me Sheila and spank my ass while having sex with my butthole. It's like, that's not right, but...
the other thing is one of the topics that he talked about is under the perversion or the transgender umbrella was the ones that go through the half sex change, the freaks that want to have a dong.
Yeah, the transvestites that want to look for like a female and they want to keep their penis. And yet they insist on being called transgendered even though they're transvestite, and there is a major difference between that, but that's not one of the 7 different types. There's transvestite, cross-dresser, drag queen, and transgendered. And all 4 are different. Transgender people want to have the whole surgery and they believe that their life is all messed up. Transvestite usually wants to do it for money-making purposes and has no intention of losing their willy. And then you have the drag queen who does it for entertainment purposes, again, and they don't even care if they shave their beards or legs. But they're going to dress up and go to these weird balls and have fun and wear terrible makeup. And then you've got the cross-dresser who tends to only do it at home, hides out from everybody, could be married, and their wife might not even ever know. But that's another 4 types.
I was going to say there's something I wanted to share with you all. I think last night I was trying to figure out what I was missing when it came to the transsexualism, something that I was meaning to say, I think, many times over. I don't know if I did. I don't think I did. And that's the thing that Aaron, I believe, said today's video is this piece of paper says medically necessary. Oh, go ahead.
Never mind.
No, you go first.
All right, I was just remembering the other 2 types. There's the one who figures that they will never get laid in their life, and the only way that they're ever going to see a female body is that they become female themselves. And so there's this bit of their brain that starts to have fantasies about actually being a woman. And so they start thinking, well, I can be my own woman. And then there's those who just want to be taken care of by somebody else. And so they essentially just use people so that they can be taken care of. And they want to essentially be a housewife because they know that house husbands aren't acceptable. Even though women want gender equality, they're unwilling to go and hit on a man who's rather shy or anything, even though
they're mostly stuck up that say, "Oh, that person's disabled."
And they also don't want any way a house husband. And it's like, you know what? Why don't you make passes at guys if you want to be equal? Why don't you have a house husband if you want to be equal? Instead, you want to be taken care of. This is again though just something I got to say in general about women, because genetics and transgendered are the same on that. At least that's one agreement they tend to have. They want a guy who's rich. They want a guy who can take care of them. They don't really seem to really want to work, and they want to make sure that they got financial stability out of it. So, but some of them will work, and then it's my money is my money, and my husband's money is half my money too. He can have the other half of his money. I need the card, please. But, and that's not all women, but I mean, I feel safe in generalizing since I hear all women, see women and hear women all the time saying, all guys are jerks. Well, if all guys are jerks, all women are stuck up, okay? It's the same type of thing, and it's a form of shallowness, and women are the shallowest creatures in the world if men are the biggest jerks in the world.
I saw...
Especially when you got a nice guy who talks to you and says hi to you and is willing to do just about anything for you, who's kind, caring, compassionate, and considerate, and you got to be so shallow as, oh, well, you're fat. You know, get away from me. You're fat. I don't like you. And it's like, you don't even say hi to me, and you already don't like me. That's wonderful. You know, that's how so many women are. So, yes, I'm going to say that all women are shallow, and you don't get offended by it, ladies, because you know that you're guilty of saying all men are jerks and all men are assholes. So, anyways, this has been going 55 minutes, and as I said, at 45 minutes, we've beaten us to a dead horse, but Rita wants to seem to keep it alive, so... And
this is the last point I was going to make for you all, because I don't want to make any more videos on this subject. Hurts. Yes, and I wanted a drink. And so it goes like this. One of the things that Miss Rennie was talking about is it medically necessary? That's one thing I'd like to touch on. It's not medically necessary. If a person can live 70 years of their life and say, oh, well, I was in the army, I need to be a woman. Come on.
We already talked about the fact that if you ain't going to die from it, it ain't medically necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
And transgenderism, you are not going to die from it, except for maybe by your own hands. And that's only because you chose to. So that doesn't make it medically necessary.
Excuse me for saying this to cigar addicts, so I can wrap this up, is... My opinion is, if they say they're going to commit suicide because if they don't get their sex change, then I say give them a gun and let them murder themselves, because frankly we don't need them around.
I just don't want to see people using the system because they think they can.
And it's going to happen that way.
Oh, it will.
Unless the government basically has found a back door.
In fact, I've noticed that I decided I'd just do a little bit of research, and I went to a couple transgendered forums. It's all over the place right now in the transgender communities about Medicare being there, and how many of them are saying, how hard is it to get on Medicare? And maybe I can do that because I can't afford this. And it's going all over the place that they're sitting there saying, well, I'm going to have to sign up. Oh, I'm going to have to sign up. And then you get some girl that comes in and she's like, I'm new. I haven't even told my parents yet. And then they say something about Medicare, and she's like, how do I get on Medicare? And they're giving her links to get on Medicare at like 18 years old, who hasn't even told her parents yet. Yes, I'll use the proper pronouns that they want to be called, but they're already being told how to go and use the system.
Yes, but here's the problem. Does anyone realize that Medicare is for people on Social Security, retirement,
We've already talked about that.
Hold on, and 65 or disabled. How's an 18-year-old cheesehead
They're going to lie about disability and use what the others tell them to about, well, just act like you're so depressed that you can't go on with life. And then you can say, well, I can't even get out of bed because I'm afraid of what people say.
Yes, but Aaron...
I don't want people sitting there and judging me, and it scares me, and I'm not accepted at work, and I can't go out because of this, and I'm stuck in home because...
and here's the kicker.
Now they're saying that they're so severely depressed that they're disabled.
Yes, but here's the problem with it. Social Security doesn't cover severe depression, and... For you douchebag, know-nothing trannies out there watching this, so I can wrap this up, there's one thing me and him had to go through. It's called a psychological evaluation, you numbnuts.
Yep, and there is one form of severe depression they will cover, and that's when you've been hospitalized for severe depression, and they've deemed that you can't even handle basic functioning with the depression. Which I have actually been there, but not that bad, and I've never actually been hospitalized. Which
yes, but with your other... Yeah, well, you said you were hospitalized before you got on Medicare.
Yes, but I've never actually been mentally hospitalized.
Oh.
Not in a mental hospital.
Oh.
You know, not mentally abdicated by the law and not stuck there by a doctor against my wishes by my parents signing me in or anything.
Well,
I've never been in a mental hospital.
Anyways, the bottom line is, even if you try to go and apply, all you douchebags out there, You got a psychological evaluation of between 1 and 4 therapists that Social Security paid for, and they ask if you're faking your thing. They also ask for school records, college records, work history. They stack it all up and says, oh, Morgan Jenkins is tranny, yet they want to get it. Let's see. Oh, they graduated and had a high school diploma. They got this and that. You get it. They do all this.
Speaking of hospitalizations, I've only been hospitalized twice for less than 12 hours for mental issues. One was because I kept passing out after not sleeping for almost a month straight. Or very little sleeping, which was usually from passing out. That was when I had my mental breakdown, though, that was caused by the restaurant I worked at that I was telling the story of earlier. Anyways, this has now gone an hour.
Donuts are yummy.
This has now gone an hour.
Yes.
We're done.
Yes, we're done. So there you have it. For all of you out there, just remember, like we said, in the end, you got to go through psychological evaluations to get on disability. They send you to specialists to show that you're disabled or not. Even if you get on disability, you got to wait 2 years. And even if you do that, Social Security can still say you're deemed not a threat on the thing or not medically necessary on the grounds that you all are saying that you are going to hurt yourself because you can't live in the body you have. And you elderly people that after a certain amount of age, 65 or older, why don't you wake up and smell what you're shoveling, because we do not need old people like you draining the Social Security system to have a sex change. Right now there's no doctors that will take Medicare. And if a doctor does, the doctor's screwing themselves. So, bottom line is, even if this is all legalized and someone can get through and backdoor it, there's going to be a lot of hell in the future and flack, I bet.
74-year-old probably wants to have plastic surgery and facial feminization surgery so they can look 30 years old and get a 20-year-old
That's
boyfriend.
what she said.
And then they can have sex.
She said it's deemed medically necessary for the entire full sex change.
I just love the idea that a 74-year-old can have surgery to look like they're 30 because it's medically necessary for them to live a happy life.
What about the elderly? I said in my first video. What if Grandma
one of our neighbors who are 60 plus years older, our 90-year-old grandmother wants to go and get it.
Yeah.
They might just do it now because of this. It opens up so many possibilities.
Or they might say, we're sorry, you're an old woman, almost 90. It's not medically necessary, but Joe, Bob, Bill wants it done because they're transsexual. So, same goes with breast augmentation. Same goes with everything else. Like I said, the low self-esteem A cups. They're all going to be complaining, and transsexuals are going to get it all now. Bottom line is, should I take advantage of it? No. Will I? Well, I've printed this out to see what my doctor's got to say.
Because it might be your one chance.
Yes, as Aaron said, as Miss Rennie said, and I believe it was You Cigar Addict that said it might be my only chance, so I'm looking into it. So, with that said, everyone, please add and subscribe if you like. Please post comments, suggestions, feedback. And before I go, is it raining? Because if it is, I want a cigar.
And by the way, when I'm talking about Rita going ahead and trying, at least the one thing is that she's not disabled due to transgendered issues. She's disabled because of fetal alcohol syndrome, severe learning disabilities, anger issues, visual impairments, and hearing impairments.
Oh!
And she's uncoordinated.
And just so you know for a second, this little guy here is my hearing dot. Say hi, Blizzard. This is Blizzard.
That's because she can't hear somebody knocking on her door. So he barks, she knows somebody's at the door.
Look at this little guy.
Unfortunately, we have very rude neighbors who seem to think that it's quite all right to scream up and down the doorstep, and that ends up telling him, hey, somebody's out there. So he alerts us. And that's actually interfering with a alert dog, which is a form of a therapy service dog. And interfering with a therapy service dog is a federal offense.
So
the neighbor can actually be arrested for shouting to her sister-in-law down the stairs.
Yes.
But we're never going to go that way either. We're too nice to do it, even if our neighbors are rude to us.
Or as Aaron said, rude, greedy a-holes that owns 4 PS4s for something we don't even know how they got.
They had 4 PS4s and they took them back to try to exchange them. They probably did. They can't afford even one PS4.
Please add and subscribe if you like. Please post comments, feedback, suggestions. This video is done. I gotta upload it and head on out. Thank you, and may God bless the world.